This is a good movie podcast with Katie and Joe.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of This is a Good Movie podcast with me, one of your hosts, Katie Hetledge, and sitting across from me is...
one of your other hosts, Joe Bates. That's me. I'm also here.
Joe, how are you doing today?
Bad.
I know, that was me last week.
No, I'm doing all right. The world's crazy, but outside that, movies are still pretty good. So as long as we can escape for 4 years, I think we'll be okay. But yeah, no, overall, pretty good. We're looking for houses. That's what we're doing these days.
Yeah, if anyone's listening and has a house they want to give us
for free,
we'll take it.
We will take it off your hands.
Take that from you.
Actually, if you want some money, I've got $50.
You know that those cash for gold signs? We do cash for houses, but it's only $50.
Yeah, there's an asterisk.
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 Nope. Asterisk.
Isn't it end in an X?
No. Oh my gosh, no. It's
oh no.
Oh my god. It's ASTERISK. Asterisk.
Oh, I thought it was ASTERIX.
Nope.
Well, folks, you decide. Vote in our poll. Asterix or Asterix.
Okay. Well, do you have any movie news for us today?
Yeah, I have some movie news. You may be disappointed to hear this because this probably means you're not going to do a sequel to the movie with him as the lead. I can't say his name very well, but I will try.
Yeah, no one is surprised after the whole asterisk situation.
But Ke-Huy Quan.
Ke-Huy Quan.
Mm-hmm. He said he's not doing any more action movies after this Love Hurts movie.
Why? Just because he's like
too
getting
old.
older?
Yeah, he's like, I don't have that in me anymore.
Man, that is a bummer because I feel like everyone slept on him for decades.
Yeah.
In between, obviously his Indiana Jones
Sure,
stint as a child and then Everything Everywhere All at Once. And so we've missed decades of potential action movies from him because people just weren't booking him. That's unfortunate. I want to see that movie. I don't know that it's going to be great, but I still want to see it.
One of the issues with Oscar season when you start seeing all these Oscar movies is that we're missing out on You're Cordially Invited or Love Hurts, or there's one where Josh Hartnett's crazy on a plane.
Do you mean Companion?
Well, there's also Companion.
Oh, You're Cordially... Oh, that's the Reese Witherspoon movie?
Yeah.
I just call it the Reese Witherspoon movie.
Well, that's not the title of it.
It is to me.
And I also want to see another plane movie, Flight Risk, where Mark Wahlberg is ugly and bald. Because I need a Topher Grace renaissance.
Yeah, see, I am not excited for that movie, but I do love Topher Grace. You haven't seen Win a Date with Tad Hamilton, and at some point we will watch it.
Okay.
And Topher Grace is in it, and he is wonderful.
All right. Well, I guess we'll see it. Right now. Pause the podcast. Everybody watch Win a Date with Tad. Now, yeah, that's why movie news. We're also looking for a house. We got some other stuff going on and figuring it out. But the most important thing is the movie we're going to talk about today, Katie.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So for this week, we watched 1990's Pretty Woman, starring Julia Roberts and Richard Gere. Gary Marshall directed. What did you think this movie was? And then I'll share a bit more about it.
I thought this movie is about aliens. No, I feel like this is one of those movies that everyone kind of knows what it is, even though they haven't seen it, because it's in the lexicon. Mm-hmm. I said, guy falls in love with prostitute and tries to figure out how to get her out of that life.
Yeah, I mean, that is part of it. I would say that's a pretty big part of it. Okay, well, we can talk about it. This movie, the budget was $14 million.
Oh, I mean, that makes sense. There wasn't a lot of things you'd have to pay for.
No, and Julia Roberts was pretty much an unknown at this point. She had done Mystic Pizza. That was out. But Steel and Magnolias was filmed, but it wasn't released yet. So she did end up getting an Oscar nomination for that. But at the time of her casting in this, they didn't know who she was at that point.
So what did this movie make in the box office? $14 million? Did it make I'm guessing $200 million?
$463 million.
Jesus Christ.
Everyone
Sex sells,
loves
baby.
this movie. This movie sold more tickets than My Big Fat Greek Wedding, which we know is impressive because that movie had like the longest run, especially for a rom-com. So it's the highest ticket sales for a rom-com. It is also the highest grossing R-rated film released by Walt Disney Studios. This is a Disney movie.
Oh, wow.
Surprisingly. Well, it held that record for 34 years until last year another movie surpassed it.
I wonder what movie it could have been.
What R-rated Disney film last year sold more tickets than Pretty Woman?
Long Legs.
Yes, Long Legs. No, Deadpool and Wolverine. So it was, I would say commercial success.
Yeah, I think so.
In some ways, a critical success. It did get one Oscar nomination.
Okay. I'm going to guess Julia Roberts got nominated for acting.
She did. She won the Golden Globe for Best Actress in a comedy or musical. And it got a few other like Globe nominations, like Best Motion Picture, Comedy or Musical. Richard Gere got a nomination for actor. Got some BAFTA nominations as well. So a smattering of things, but I would say like for all intents and purposes, it was a success.
I put some numbers into our little Excel sheet keeping track of all the movies. And this is the second most profitable movie we've covered in this podcast, next to My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Yeah. Interesting.
I'm only picking bangers.
Wow, it really beat out Frank. It beat out Molly's Game. So I can't believe Molly's Game made $59 million. That's still crazy to me. Anyways, did
I already say Gary Marshall directed this?
Yes, you did.
Okay, well, he has directed another film that we have already done for this podcast.
Oh, let me guess. Devil Wears Prada.
No. Did he? No.
I don't know.
No.
I'm looking at the list
fully
of movies,
guessing.
so I'm just fully guessing.
I thought you were like looking at something. No, Princess Diaries.
Oh, okay.
He directed both of the Princess Diaries.
This guy loves women that want to be princesses.
And he also directed Runaway Bride, which came out like 10 years after this one, also starring Richard Gere and Julia Roberts.
Runaway Bride. Okay.
You probably haven't seen that one.
No, I've not seen that one. I've not seen Notting Hill either.
I mean, gosh. You know nothing of what Julia Roberts can do in a rom-com.
No, I know Julia Roberts from Ocean's 11. And I think I did see...
Did you watch the George Clooney movie that she did like a couple years ago, Ticket to Paradise?
Ticket to Paradise.
They were so cute in it together because I think they're
my
friends.
My parents liked it.
Yeah.
I did not see Aaron Brockovich either.
Okay, well, I guess we've got a lot of movies.
Julia Roberts sauce.
A lot of Julia
Roberts sauce.
movies to watch. I'm going to add this to my list.
I want to just talk about the beginning of this movie real quick. I know we're going to try and talk about each character individually, but I would be remiss to not point this out, which I think stood out to me in the movie more than anything else.
Okay.
When they show the Hollywood Walk of Stars.
Yes.
They show the big one. The one they definitely stand out to show is Carol Lombard.
Okay.
I have no idea who that is, and it feels like the movie was like, this will be a bigger deal forever. Carol Lombard, who nobody knows.
Yeah, they also mentioned someone else, like someone Williams or Wilson. I don't know who that is. They were like, when they were like, this is our.
Yeah, these are all like the talkies, like celebrities or whatever back in the day that we have fully forgotten about.
Well, there are a lot of so this movie. Okay, so I'll just give like a quick recap if anyone doesn't know Pretty Woman. Julia Roberts plays a sex worker / escort, Vivian Ward, and she is in LA and she gets picked up by Edward Lewis, played by Richard Gere. He wasn't intending. This is something I forgot. I thought that he went to Hollywood Boulevard with the intention of like, oh, I need a date for this week.
No, he was just driving.
But he had gotten in his lawyer's car after like breaking up with his girlfriend back in New York. And he's like driving around and can't figure out how to drive this car.
It's a stick shift.
Kind of finds himself there. And so Vivian comes up and is going to give him directions back to his hotel. But then he's like, wow, she's so charming. And so he invites her to stay the night and then invites her to stay the week for $3,000. And she's going to be his date for the entire week while he's in town doing all of these business meetings. He's like someone who just takes over companies and then sells them off.
Yeah, he buys companies and sells them for parts.
Yeah. So he's in town for like a deal.
It is important to mention that he buys companies and sells them for parts.
Okay.
Because I think he's a serial killer that buys prostitutes and sells them for parts.
He is not a serial killer.
Okay, we'll get to it.
He did not sell Vivian for parts. Okay, so that's not what he's doing. But yes, and then over time they form an emotional attachment and get together at the end, which is great. So that's the movie. But because it takes place in LA, I feel like they do a lot of references to Hollywood, and there's like she's watching I Love Lucy. She's watching an Audrey Hepburn movie. There also some sort of meta references. I think like the opera that they go to see up in San Francisco is about kind of a similar trope to what this movie is, which is sort of a Cinderella story or like rags to riches kind of thing. And the like Audrey Hepburn movie that they're watching, in it, there's some, I don't know, like a heist or like an amount of money that needs to be sold. And it's like $250,000, which is the amount that her necklace costs. So there's like all of these little kind of tidbits.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Hollywood tidbits throughout.
It is. And like, it's funny to see it back then. Even then they were like, oh, this is going to be an Oscar movie, but we need to just make sure we show the love of film like within the movie. Kind of, you just see that tidbits for some of these great movies or some of these movies that won awards and everything.
Yep.
It felt like the end of the 80s movie. It felt like the transition from like 80s to 90s when I was watching it, because it had those like kind of 80s songs to it, but the movie itself had like a 90s look.
I guess I don't know as much. I don't know. To me, it feels like it's all kind of one thing, but the outfits felt very 80s to me. Lots of shoulder pads, lots of blazers.
Like, let's see another movie.
Lots of long necklaces.
I'm trying to think of a movie that was like
Buttons.
early 90s that we covered in here. Like, well, The Crow is not a good example. The Crow is not a good example at all. But 7 years later, you have a movie like Good Will Hunting, and it feels like a completely different movie being made that they wouldn't make back then, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that.
The Crow. In 4 years, all movies are The Crow after Pretty Woman.
Well, so you bring up your theory that Richard Gere is a serial killer, which is not true. But this film, when it was first written, like the first draft, was actually supposed to be very dark. It was
really?
like a really dark cautionary tale about like sex work in LA and drug use, and like Vivian was going to be addicted to cocaine, and like part of the deal for the week was that she couldn't use any drugs. So they have like, and you see little references kind of throughout.
I don't do drugs anymore.
She's like, he thinks she's doing drugs, but she's actually flossing, and like some of the maybe darker things they kind of gave to Kit, her roommate, her friend, who is kind of out partying a bit more. But it was supposed to be this really dark film called 3000, based on like the amount of money that she's going to charge. And the ending is like, the original ending is like, Edward like throws her out of his car, like, and is like, I'm done with you. And then she and Kit like get on a bus to like go to Disneyland. That's like the end. So it was this really dark movie, and Julia Roberts was attached to it as that version. And then Disney picked it up and was like, this is too dark. Disney can't.
This is not the Disney
Disney
brand.
can't do this. They also were like, we have to change the title because 3000 sounds like a sci-fi movie. So we're gonna have to change that.
That is a terrible name, 3000.
Yeah. So they pick it up, and then they're kind of like, we gotta rework this. This has to be lighter, more fun, funnier. And so then they bring on Gary Marshall, who does rom-coms and like can kind of walk that line. So he takes it and he's like, okay, we'll rework the script and made it into what we see as Pretty Woman. But in doing so, Julia Roberts then was like unattached, like she had to read again to
really?
because he didn't know her.
There. Yeah,
I mean, he comes in, he's like, Disney's like, maybe Meg Ryan should do it. We really like her. She's a rom-com person.
Interesting.
Gary Marshall was like, what about, he really liked Diane Lane. Maybe like bring her in. So there were all of these other, Kristen Davis read for it. Like tons of people read for this role apparently. And mostly because he just didn't know who Julia Roberts was. So it was like, why would I go with this? But then eventually he saw how great she was. He was like, I just had to see her smile and then knew like she was right for the role. But he thought
that sounds terrible.
Well, no, because Julia Roberts' smile is like iconic.
Yeah, no, I get it, but it's just like, just smile and you'll get the part.
No. She also was like 20 when this was filmed, so she was really young.
Well,
too.
I wrote a note that says Julia Roberts in any movie I've ever seen her in always seems 30-something, but not in a bad way.
She
but just
does
always
come
seems
across
30-something.
older. I was like surprised to learn that she was only 21 when this came out, and Richard Gere is like 18 years older than her. But I would have guessed it was maybe like a 10-year age gap, not 18.
But thank God he helped her out. So I mean, he's 18 years older than Runaway Bride as well, and every other movie they're together.
So in Runaway Bride, it's like she's like 30 and he's like 50.
Yeah,
those are the only two movies they're in together.
Oh, who's Notting Hill?
Hugh Grant.
Oh, okay. Hugh Grant is like wish list Richard Gere, I feel like.
What? No, he's his own wonderful person.
Right.
Well, Richard Gere also wasn't really going to do this movie. She read with like a bunch of other people. Al Pacino.
Oh, man.
She did like a reading with him.
That would have been great. I would have loved this movie of Al Pacino and Julia Roberts.
Yeah. So he, a lot of other people.
I don't drink. I don't drink. I don't drink.
Sleep.
Don't you call her a
hooker? Sam Neill read for this. Love Sam Neill.
Oh yeah, Sam Neill would have worked. But Richard Gere, is Richard Gere British?
No.
He just has the
Seems
full
kind of
vibe of Britishy.
Christopher Reeve.
Christopher
Reeve read for this.
Christopher Reeves in the wheelchair?
What do you mean in the wheelchair? Is he in a wheelchair?
Christopher Reeves, the Superman?
No. Christopher Reeve, not Christopher Reeves. Yeah, Superman.
Yeah, he was paralyzed. He fell off a horse and like got paralyzed from his neck down.
When?
It must have been after this audition. I would assume it would have been weird.
That was in 1995.
Wow, okay. So 5 years after this.
Yes, but this is not the only role that Christopher Reeve... Well, Christopher Reeve didn't quite lose this role. He was reading, and Julia Roberts wasn't there, so it was just the casting director, and she was like just deadpan doing these lines back to him. And so he like got really upset and was like, this movie sucks, and ripped up the script and like walked out. But this was not the first film that Christopher Reeve, I guess, auditioned for, and then Richard Gere ended up doing. There's another one, Officer and a Gentleman.
Okay, yeah. That's what's really crazy is that I think of all the names you've read, I think Christopher Reeve was been better than Richard Gere in this movie. Have you seen a Christopher Reeve movie?
I don't think so.
We are gonna watch before the new Superman comes out, the original Superman, and I'm telling you, Christopher Reeve is awesome.
Great, I'm excited. So Richard Gere was, I think Gary Marshall like had worked with him before maybe, or they knew each other, and so he sent him the script, and Richard Gere was kind of like not interested in it. He was like, I don't really get it. This character isn't anything. He's just like a suit. Like anyone could play him, which I disagree with. But so then Gary Marshall brings Julia Roberts, who's already cast, to New York, and they meet at his like home, his office. And so Gary Marshall's like, okay, you guys get to know each other. And basically Richard Gere just found Julia Roberts like so charming. Chatting about it, and then Gary Marshall like calls him up and is like, hey, how's it going? And I was like, what are you thinking?
This isn't on a cell phone, by the way. This is the 1990s, so he called
he called from a payphone outside, I don't know, to Richard Gere's office in his house. And the story is that the story comes from Richard Gere and Julia Roberts themselves, so I have no reason to believe it's not true. But as he's on the phone and Gary Marshall is like, what do you think? Julia Roberts writes on a Post-it and like slides it across his desk to him, and it just says, "Please say yes." And so on the phone, he's like, "Well, I just said yes to doing it." But their chemistry, I think, is really great.
Yeah, their chemistry is really good. I do feel like Richard Gere has some weaknesses, but I think that's the first half of the movie where I think he's supposed to play kind of.
He's like really closed off. You don't know him. I think Julia Roberts said this movie is, yes, it is about a sex worker falling in love with a businessman or whatever, but it's really about like two people kind of seeing each other and like being seen by each other. And they're both kind of, I would say both of them are people who their professions, I would say society views them as maybe like not a good person. Like,
that's a good point. I didn't think about that until you just said that. That's actually like their society views these people as very like the scum of the earth
for very different reasons. But they both kind of get judged, and so I think they both have their guards up at the beginning of the movie. Like, he doesn't want to get close to her. He's kind of like doesn't even really know what he's doing with her. I think he's just like feeling lonely and wanting like maybe some companionship or something. And she is like, you know, the famous like not kissing thing. Yeah. Like, it's very clear that their walls are up, and then over the course of the week they kind of see each other. And then at the end of the movie, the great line at the end is like, so what happens now that the prince has like climbed up the tower and rescued the princess or whatever? And she's like, she rescues him right back. So it just shows like, which I think is why this movie works, because you are just really like, regardless of circumstances, you're really rooting for this couple, because you feel like, wow, this couple, like, for all of their flaws, they see each other and they like are such a good match. Like, I was like, I want to watch a sequel of this where I get to see like, where are they in 10 years? Like, where, you know, let's say they're back in New York and she is dealing with mean wives or something. Like, I want to see that play out, because I think that their chemistry and like the way that they are there for each other is so great.
Both characters have agency in this movie, which I do appreciate. It never seems like there is a power balance that's off, obviously, because he's rich and she's taking his money. But it does feel like they kind of both have power over each other.
Well, and she turns down his money a couple different times. She tries to leave early because she is upset with him telling Phil
she's a hooker,
that she's a sex worker.
Well, that's what they say in the movie. They're not saying, I may say hooker and prostitute in this, but this is just lines that are used in the movie. So I'm not. I appreciate. And so then he workers.
Tries to.
I know it's a tough business.
And then
I was a sex worker first.
Joe has an OnlyFans. Yeah. Try to find it.
Try and find it. It's me playing Final Fantasy VII.
Only fantasy.
It is interesting that you said that's what the movie about. That's what the movie's about, because what I think the movie's about is a magical hotel full of Cupid's hotel workers that is doing their best to make people fall in love.
Oh, I love the hotel. Okay, well, let's try and have some semblance of structure in this podcast.
I like how we're doing it.
I'm all over the place. But let's talk about the hotel, because who is the manager of the hotel? It is none other than Hector. Oh gosh, how do I say his last name?
Ke Hua Kwan?
Hector Elizondo.
Oh, okay.
Hector Elizondo, who you may have recognized
from The Crow,
from The Princess Diaries.
Oh,
he plays
The Princess Diaries.
Joe, the driver.
No, I know. He's not in The Crow.
So he is in all of Gary Marshall's movies.
Interesting.
He's in all of them.
Wow, they must hang out a lot.
Yeah, I think they're BFFs.
Hector and Gary. That's a terrible name of two friends.
But his character, the manager in this, is so great. And I was like, wow, he really can't help but play the character that's going to help like the young girl who doesn't know what she's doing, like exist in a fancy world. Like, it's the same thing that he does in Princess Diaries.
I was truly shocked, because one thing in this movie that I found interesting is there was very little conflict. So the conflict was Jason Alexander. And outside that, it's just kind of a story about these people, but there isn't like people like trying to break them apart outside maybe Jason Alexander.
Not as many as you would maybe think. not as many as I think if this movie were made today, it would have. There would be more. There would probably be some like the ex-girlfriend would like show up and like
ex-girlfriend
or like his
her
parents or something like
Carlos, her friend and Carlos like showing
Kit
up.
and Carlos, yeah.
Someone in the hotel who's not comfortable with it. Like just so many options.
You see
to
a
do it.
little bit of that, but
It's just like a glancing, like,
yeah,
I'm rich.
They're like, ooh, who's this lady wearing these crazy boots?
Also, living in a time now, I see people in crazy clothes in fancy places like all the time.
Right.
It's like, all right, everyone relax.
Well,
Maybe she's a singer.
maybe she's a singer. I don't think her crazy wig helped, and also
The wig was bad.
Her boots were being held together by like duct tape, essentially. So I think there's a level of that.
Yeah,
too.
there's that. But I do love that she wears this wig to help like get more money, and then she thinks that was like the most beautiful hair you've ever seen.
It's so dumb. I don't know if it's like another sort of.
You want to be a different person
that she's built of like, yeah, she's like playing a character instead of herself. And so her hair is like personal. I mean, that's like a theme in a lot of literature is like women's hair is where they hold their power. It's a whole thing. Anyway, won't get into it.
Okay.
But and like their eyes were, and like their eyes were watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. It's like she cuts off her hair because it's like
Samson.
But but that's a great example too. It's not a woman's hair, but
it's just hair in general. Wally is the most powerful dog in the world.
No, he just got a haircut.
Oh, nice. Weak. He's weak.
Anyway, yeah, it is ridiculous because like Julia Roberts has the best hair in this movie. It's so beautiful. She's just stunning. I mean, she's absolutely striking. The whole time I was like, wow, her eyebrows and Kit's eyebrows. I was like, they got good eyebrows on these sex workers.
What scene do you think I was like, oh, Julia Roberts the most attractive person I've ever seen in my life? Like, kind of like, no, I'm saying like.
I don't know.
No. Sorry, that was not phrased right. Like when you see like, oh, Julia Roberts is like it.
She is gorgeous. I mean, the outfit most people talk about for this movie is her red dress when they go to the opera.
Oh, okay.
That is like we could spend a lot of time probably talking about the fashion of this movie after she goes shopping.
Yeah.
The infamous shopping scene.
I love the shopping scene.
Did you know that was coming? The big mistake, huge. Did you know that was
that scene I didn't know about. That's like the most famous scene in the movie.
Yeah. And was that satisfying when you saw it actually play out in real life?
Well, as you know, my mom has a story once.
I know, very similar.
Where we were trying to buy my dad like a nice pen, and we went into this fancy pen store, and everybody is like dressed to like very nicely, and we're wearing like big bulky Columbia ski jackets, so we kind of look like we're out of place. And nobody will talk to my mom. Mm-hmm. Nobody at all will go to my mom to like sell her this pen, and she just yells out, I can buy and sell everybody in this store, and storms out.
Makes no sense.
And I go, you can't. We were in
what
the car.
Does that mean?
And I go, you can't do that. And she goes, no, I don't think I can.
Like, what does it even mean?
I can. No, she's like, you have no idea how important I am. Mm-hmm. So she was. I think my mom probably had seen Pretty Woman.
Yeah, was like, this circa 1990? How old were you?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we just walked out of the movie to get a pen. I mean, it would have been early 90s when this happened.
So maybe. But yeah, so you liked that scene lived up to its expectations. I think it does.
I wish there was a little bit more of like shittiness when she gets in, like just walks in and just says it out loud instead of walking up to the person.
Oh,
but I think
she goes and like
good.
finds the exact person.
Yeah.
Like,
so I do think it was good. To go back to my earlier
point, what's the scene?
When she says holy shit and sinks into the tub. I was like, wow, that's it. Like, that's it. Like, that's
when she's like,
very cute.
He's like, how much for the whole week? And she's like, $3,000. And he's like, or no, she says $4,000.
He says $2,000. She says $4,000. They make a deal at $3,000.
And she says $3,000. He says, okay. And she goes, holy shit. And sinks into the bathtub. Two things about that. One, I love the later lines of that where she's like, I would have stayed for $2,000, and he says I would have paid $4,000.
Yeah,
that is great. Like, wow, like That's crazy. The chemistry in that moment is like off the charts. I'm like, oh, they like each other.
They
and that's
like each
early in the movie, and they like each other. But the bathtub scene, what's funny about that is they did like a little prank, and you can watch like the filming of this, where so she sinks in the tub and then is supposed to like come back up and say like yes I'm in, and while they were filming it, she sinks down, and then Richard Gere and everybody else runs away. So when she comes back up, nobody is there, and it's just like a prank they decided to pull.
That's a good prank
for no reason.
That's a fun prank,
but like they were just having fun. And so also they did like multiple bathtub scenes in this movie, which I just feel like it's bold. Bathtub scenes. Who's doing those?
Bathtub scenes.
I have to imagine the audio is tough for that. You've got water splashing.
I'm trying to think of movies with bathtub scenes. I guess Shape of Water.
Shape of Water.
Saw.
Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
I feel like the substance is a lot of the scenes are in a bathroom, but it's not in a bathtub.
I just think it potentially is challenging, but I mean, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, sound is a difficult thing to do with a lot of movies. People don't understand the work that goes into to make it happen. I do want to talk about the fashion in this movie, but I don't want to talk about Julia Roberts' fashion. I want to talk about the store she gets kicked out of's fashion, where it looks like they're dressed like your grandparents' furniture.
She goes to Rodeo Drive because she only has her one outfit that she got picked up in, and he's like, you're going to need an outfit for dinner, so go get one. So she tries to go to Rodeo Drive. That's where Kit tells her to go. And then they're so mean to her. And they all, their outfits are so bad.
It's crazy. They literally look like what your grandparents' house looks like as a clothing. I don't understand.
Just like anyone's grandparents' house, not mine in particular.
What the fuck?
Oh, you said your.
No, the royal your.
Yeah.
I also furniture in this movie, like when she is in the hotel manager's office, and I'm looking around, I'm like, God, I forgot 90s furniture was like this cherry wood, and it's like you just had a bunch of stuff that cluttered the room up, and it never looked clean or anything. It's just like a bunch of things.
A lot of florals.
A lot of weird
What'd you think
shapes.
of the penthouse?
That terrible. I mean, there were some parts of the penthouse I liked, like the balcony, but like when they walk in, I'm like, this is not that nice.
It's fancy. It's got a whole dining room table.
The dining room table is a bad dining room table, though. So it's like part of the 90s furniture I'm talking about.
Big bathtub, though.
Big bathtub. So big you can run away from it.
Yeah. Oh, they did another prank in this movie
classic prank.
that stayed in.
Okay.
Do you have any guesses what that is? Like Richard Gere did the prank and they just kept Julia Roberts' reaction. That's your clue.
Oh, the when he shows the jewelry. And
the necklace. Yeah, where
that's a really nice moment.
Yeah. So that was just like a little joke that he was doing, and then her laugh was so great that they were like, "Let's keep it."
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that again helps to like their playfulness. And
yep, chemistry off the charts.
Yeah, I will give you this. I do feel like of every movie we've watched, this is the most best chemistry of any romance that we've seen.
Yeah,
like by far.
It's pretty good.
Outside, maybe The Crow.
Oh my God. Yeah, and it's just Ernie Hudson and the basketballs on his couch.
Next to the saxophone.
Next to the saxophone. Okay, so she, gets kicked out, and then she goes to the hotel manager. They have their little thing. He helps her out, gets her over to that store. So funny when she's like, "Oh, by the way, he's not my uncle," and she's like, "They never are, dear." I mean, the lines in this, some of them just
there's some really good lines.
I don't think of this as like a super funny movie. Like we have talked about the rom-com spectrum.
No, there are really good lines, yeah.
Before of some movies in the rom-com spectrum are more com or more rom. And my memory was this being much more rom. And I think it is, but some very funny lines. And Princess Diaries also has some very funny lines.
I would say this is 60% rom, 40% com.
Yeah, which is that's a good split.
Yeah. The line that Kit says at the end, where she talks about like two people who don't work out with their penis, she goes, "Those are very specific cases of crackheads."
I know, it's so funny. And then when Vivian is like moving out, because before they end up together, she's like going to move to San Francisco and go back to school and get a job and stuff. And so Kit is going to give her room to another sex worker that they know.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay. And like, your room's small. I don't know if you have a lot of stuff. And she's like, no, Carlos burned it all when he found out I was moving. Says it like so nonchalantly. It's like so funny. I mean, sad, but funny. Anywho, so
are rich people great?
What? I don't think so, because you have Jason Alexander playing his lawyer, and he's bad dude.
Yeah,
he thinks he can do whatever he wants with Julia Roberts, and then attempts to
rape her.
Yeah, in the hotel room.
It's insane.
They have a whole fight scene. A candlestick falls.
I looked at candlestick
off the table.
I told you this when we were watching the movie. I was interested because this is 1990. Seinfeld started a year before this, so he is still in he's not even peak Seinfeld yet, and he's doing a movie where he is like a terrible, terrible guy.
Yeah, he wants him to like take this deal that's gonna kind of screw over this old man.
Yeah. But just think of George Costanza and the one guy we saw in this movie. They seem like so different, and it's mainly because he has glasses in Seinfeld.
I guess. I think they play pretty different characters with different motivations.
Jason Alexander without glasses, Shallow Hal Jason Alexander,
yeah.
This Jason Alexander, and there's probably a third one that's kind of sucks. Jason Alexander with glasses, big loser, who is very funny.
Yep. Without is just evil.
Yeah, I was like, there was that one moment in the movie where I was like, oh, where Jason Alexander like says, maybe when you're done with him, you can go with me.
Ugh, yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, like that's not good.
No, I think there are a lot of ways that this movie could have been worse in its portrayal of. So there's a criticism of like this movie falls into the trope of like hooker with a heart of gold. I say in quotations. And that they're like, oh, it glamorizes sex work. And I don't think that's true. I think it's like because you have these other characters who are not getting this experience that Julia Roberts is getting, and not everyone is Julia Roberts. But I think that it also shows some elements of like, oh, people treat sex workers as like property.
Yeah.
And that's not right. And we see Julia Roberts kind of standing up for herself and being like, you can't treat me like that. Your friends can't treat me like that. That's not okay. I'm like gonna leave.
And that's probably like when
right.
They're like, I'm not gonna have a pimp. Like I'm not gonna do this. And like,
I say who, I say when, I say how much. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I did like that kind of stance and everything. I was just not weirded out, but it's like, this relationship doesn't work if he's not the richest person in the world.
Yes.
Like that's the one.
True.
That's the one thing in this movie that like you have to be rich to make this work.
Yeah, you have to have a certain level of money that people aren't gonna mess with you.
Yeah, and so I think that was a weird thing. And then we could talk about the deal he's trying to do throughout this whole movie, where
with like, Mr. Morse.
Yeah, Mr. Morse and his grandson. And
that was what is his name? Ralph Bellamy.
Yes.
Ralph Bellamy. This is his last film.
Oh, that. So initially when I see those two guys, I think, oh, the grandson is going to like do some. I thought the grandson was going to be like that Jason Alexander character.
Yeah, and he's just there. He's just a nice guy.
He's just a nice guy that's
He
there.
just wants to talk to Julie Roberts by his horse.
Yeah, it was.
He's like, here, come pet my horse. Just a nice dude.
But I do like that the victim or the person we're cheering for is the Morris family, that they don't get their company bought out and sold for parts. And they are a defense contractor selling destroyers to
I know,
the
yeah.
Navy.
Nice.
They're like killing a bunch of people, helping a bunch of people killed. They're like, oh, come on. You can't destroy the defense contractor.
I wonder if that's,
They might just be shipbuilders. I don't know. But
they are shipbuilders. And also, depending on when movies come out, they have very different takes on like, are they pro-military or anti-military, depending on what's going on in the world. And so,
well, this is like, George H.W. Bush is in charge during this movie,
right?
So we just finished with Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if there's a lot of Cold War is done at this point.
Yeah, so that's why I think it's kind of there's probably more of a
Iran-Contra is
pro-military
happening, yeah.
atmosphere.
Yeah, the Iran-Contra affair is
That
happening
wouldn't
at the time. That
deter
makes sense.
whoever's making this movie from they wouldn't be like, oh, no, let's not do that.
Yeah, it doesn't really affect the movie, but it is
Right.
funny that it's like, oh man, this guy, they're making giant ships that'll called destroyers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else in this movie.
Oh, at one point you brought up, so they do have some like intimate scenes throughout.
Yes.
And where Julia Roberts was like so, first of all, she did have a body double for the movie for some of those scenes. So like,
Oh, really?
I think like when she's on the piano and you kind of don't really see her face anymore, I think that's the body double.
Okay.
Because she was so nervous, she would like break out in hives. And I was like, ooh, that's not good. And that's why. So I'm guessing they didn't have an intimacy coordinator on set.
No, I don't think intimacy coordinators happened until after the George
They
Bush.
tell it like it's a funny story, and I'm like, oh, that's not very funny. But you did point out in the first kind of 2 scenes that we see with them, there's no like music, there's no backing track.
Yeah.
But-
Well, there is a piano being played as they hit it.
Well, because they are on
Yeah.
the piano. But then when she kisses him for the first time and then they like make out, there is a backing track.
That's a good. I didn't notice that, but I did notice early on. I was like, it just feels.
You were like, this feels so
awkward.
awkward. And I think that's the
Yeah.
point. What do you think about like kind of the end of them? She leaves because she's like, I want more. I want like
Yeah.
the fairy tale. And he's like, I can't give that to you. I could like put you up in a nice apartment. I can like pay for all your stuff, basically offering to be like a sugar daddy.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, that's not what I want.
Because
And
that's
so-
a failed relationship.
right.
So she's like, we're either doing this real or not. And I, again, do appreciate her standing up for herself. So when he comes by in the the white limo, cheering with the flowers and everything, then climbs up the stairs in such an awkward way.
But he's afraid of heights the
I
whole
know.
time. And then he has to climb up the stairs and he's so scared.
But I think you said it best where she should have gotten the ick.
No, I didn't say she should have. I said she could have.
Yeah. I thought it was weird for me to be like, okay, dude, you've like been in love with this lady since like day 2.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're like in love with this lady and you're doing what? Nothing for it? Like, why would you? But I guess that's like, you see that with his old relationships where it's falling apart.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what are you going to do? Bye. Goodbye. I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
But Julia Roberts, with that wig, you can't turn it down.
Exactly. If they were to do a remake of this movie today,
Who would I cast?
who would you cast? Because I have a very specific answer.
Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones.
No.
If I had to do this now, so I got to pick someone in their 20s
Mm-hmm.
who is charming.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think I'm gonna say Zendaya.
That's right. That's what I was thinking. I wrote it down multiple times in my notes while watching. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting like such Zendaya vibes.
Yeah.
Because of her like fidgeting and like how she walks and stuff. I just really felt it. That's so great that you said that. Oh my gosh, mind meld.
Well, I initially
Let's play mind meld right now.
I initially was thinking Amanda Seyfried Jones or Amanda
What?
Seyfried. You know who I'm
Just
talking
Amanda Seyfried
Yeah.
from Mamma Mia.
Giant eyes.
Yeah,
No. Anna Taylor-Joy.
Anya Taylor-Joy.
But I don't think she has that charm
No,
to do it.
no.
And then
And you have to be kind of like unrefined
mhm.
too. Like I think Anya Taylor-Joy is actually too like fancy.
You know who would be the good guy in it? Chris Evans.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because there's an age difference that helps.
There is an age difference, so I don't think you need the age difference. But
I think
but
that
you-
makes the movie.
Well,
I
you-
have a chance.
I think that it should have an age difference. I don't know that it needs to be 18 years, but anyway, I just thought because Julia Roberts, like her body double, I guess, did ballet or something, and they were like, you have to stop walking gracefully because Julia Roberts walks like a cowboy, and she really does.
Julia Roberts walks. She does like
Yeah. And they made her from Georgia because she is actually from Georgia, and they were like, we don't trust that your accent won't slip through. So
it does.
Yeah,
I mentioned that. I was like, what is the... Because I was like, is that a choice? Why is
It's just how she talks. But it just adds to the charm, I
like
think.
that Julia Roberts doesn't seem to be acting at any point in this movie. They're doing pranks they're keeping in. The way she walks, they can't fix it. And they're just like, yeah, she just be herself. Is that the way it is for Julia Roberts in every movie?
Maybe. I guess we'll find out when we watch all of them.
I
will say her character in Notting Hill is very different, and is part of the reason why actually Notting Hill is not one of my favorite rom-coms.
Have you seen Ocean's 12?
No, I've only seen one of the Ocean's movies, and it was Ocean's 8 with Sandra Bullock.
Man, Ocean's 11 we should watch. Ocean's 12 I don't think we'll watch. I think you would maybe eventually, but there is a part of their heist scheme where the Julia Roberts character goes in and she is faking that she's Julia Roberts.
That's funny.
So it's Julia Roberts acting as someone else, acting as if she's Julia Roberts.
That's very confusing.
Yeah. I thought there'd be more of her friend the prostitute than the beginning and the end of the movie. I thought there'd be more of like intertwining her regular life into it, but it's literally just her in a hotel for most of it.
Yeah, she calls her up at one point, and then she like leaves money for her and stuff, but yeah, that's kind of it.
I thought going to the polo thing was a really dumb thing. Like, there really is polo matches that rich people go to, but then they did the stomping of the divots. I'm like, that seems fun.
Yeah.
That seems like a fun thing.
Why not?
Although Julia Roberts has a terrible hat in that whole scene.
It's just fashion.
Yeah, I guess. It's something.
It's something. Who would you cast Wally as?
Hank Azaria.
Oh, yeah. Hank Azaria is in this movie for like 2 seconds for no reason.
You know who an actor is when you see him, but you don't know the time period of anybody you know. And you're like, okay, this detective is another person of conflict in this movie that's going to be like chasing down this prostitute.
When I thought, I was like, wait, is there a detective in this the entire time?
Or
and
a
like,
prostitute
why?
killer like Richard Gere.
And then no, Hank Azaria is just in it for about 30 seconds.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's a crazy scene.
But yeah, Wally could definitely play that role. Do you have any takes?
I got 3 takeaways, Katie.
Okay.
I'm going to start off with my normal takeaway, which is in it I realized, operas are just luxury musicals.
I guess.
They're just the fanciest a musical could ever be is an opera.
Yeah.
I just clicked in it and I was like, they're like, so all these musicals are just low art, opera is high art of the same form.
No, they're different.
No, they're not.
I mean, whatever.
They're just because they're singing in Italian and I lost my shoe. My good takeaway, these 2 people might be very dumb.
What?
Because when they have a moment, they're in a park reading a book, and the book is just called Shakespeare Quotations, and they're reading it to each other. Like, aren't we fancy? And it's like, all right, you're just
having a nice
you're not even reading
moment.
a Shakespeare play. You're reading just specific quotations from Othello and King Lear.
I think it's quotations and sonnets.
Okay. I just thought that was odd. And my bad takeaway, they definitely voted Trump 26 years later. They're super rich. They have all the money in the world.
Okay.
He's going to be he's probably looking through all the finances in the treasury. Yeah, those are my 3 takeaways.
Yeah. Bad takeaway.
Well, it is a bad takeaway. It's not supposed to be like, I love this takeaway.
Okay, well, all that aside, Joe,
yes, 1,000 times yes.
Do you think that Pretty Woman is a good movie?
Yeah, it's a good movie. I enjoyed it. I had a good time.
Yeah. Kind of, it starts off a little slow, and I did get nervous for a second. I doubted myself.
Well,
but it comes back real strong.
If Richard Gere didn't change characters at all, like the first, I was like, this is weird because he's just staring at her laughing like a child at I Love Lucy. Like, she's never seen a comedy on TV before. Like, it was crazy. But eventually, once he started, like, I think what it was is the dinner scene with the Morris and his grandson. You're like, okay, this is where the movie is. Like, this is where the movie starts getting really good.
Right.
And like the waiter, all these people who, I did write, I love all the people that just are supportive of Julia Roberts in this. Like the waiter who catches the escargot and is like, it happens all the time. They're slippery.
Yeah, that same line is in the Princess Diaries.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Interesting that both the
They're all in
Princess
the same
Diaries,
world.
both the Princess Diaries and Pretty Woman, the actress starts off with a terrible wig that you don't know.
What? She doesn't have a wig.
In the Princess, doesn't she have that crazy, terrible hair, like ugly hair?
Well, that is her hair.
Ugh. Okay.
That they styled
Flatten.
to do that.
Like straighten. I could say flatten.
Okay, well, great. It's a good movie. I'm so
It's a good
glad.
movie.
Joe, what good movie will we be watching next?
Well, in 2 weeks, Katie, we are doing our episode on all the Oscar nominations.
Okay.
So I would like to do a movie that won Best Picture that you haven't seen that I really like, directed by the Coen brothers, directors of Big Lebowski. So we're going to watch No Country for Old Men.
Okay. Do you know where we can watch it?
It looks like you can watch it on Paramount Plus.
Okay, great.
So we'll watch that. No Country for Old Men, a movie I really do enjoy.
Wonderful. Well, this has been another good movie.
Podcast.
We appreciate everyone listening, appreciate our podcast editor and theme song creator, Kale Forbes, theme song vocals from Austin Fry, and our logo from Carrie Pulley. If you want to hear more from us, you can follow our Instagram at TIAGMpod. We post clips and photos of Wally there, and you can email us at tiagmpodcast@gmail.com. As always, it is very helpful if you can follow us, listen to the podcast, subscribe, comment, share it with your friends,
be a part of
your
our lives.
dentist, your hairstylist, whoever.
Tattoo the podcast name on your teeth so the dentist can see it.
Subscribing is the most helpful of all. So take everyone's phones that you know and use them to subscribe
phones.
to our podcast.
Just steal phones from anybody.
Okay, I'm Katie Hetledge.
I'm Joe Bates. Katie, can you give me a Julie Roberts laugh at the end of this episode?
No.
Oh, okay.
We love you. Bye.
This is a good movie podcast with Katie and Joe.